Good morning. I'd like to go ahead and call the Thursday, May 15th, 2025, regularly scheduled Parks and Community Service Committee meeting to order. The first item of business, I'd like to make a small adjustment to our agenda. Minutes listed as C, May 9th, 2025, under item 2 on our agenda. Would like to amend that, and we'll cover that next meeting. So we will only review the April 17th and May 1st minutes. Is there any discussion? Anybody opposed? All right. So we'll go ahead and move on. So item 2 would be the approval of the minutes, and again, for the minutes for April 17th, 2025, as well as the meeting on May 1st, 2025. Are there any changes to the minutes that need to be discussed?
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
On page 2 of April 17th, and the monthly cleanup, part B. I think we should be careful to recognize the difference between a Cola Park and a Cola Creek Park. If you guys want to clean up a Cola Park, that's a pretty big undertaking.
Okay. Sherry, do you see where that adjustment
Yeah,
needs
I
to
will
be made?
make those corrections.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else as far as the 2 sets of minutes? So can I have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Second. I'll second.
Oh, heck, I knew there was somebody. All right. Sherry, why don't you go ahead and just call the roll real quick.
We don't have to roll call them.
Don't have to on this. Very good. Then
Just aye.
everybody raise their hand if they are approve the minutes.
I can't vote, I wasn't present.
You can vote.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right,
it's okay, you weren't there. Okay.
thank you very much. Public comment. Do we have anybody in the audience? Public comment. No. How about anybody from?
There's one person on Zoom, Richard.
Okay,
Public comment? Raise your hand, Richard. Okay, we're good.
okay. Moving right along, Kirk will give us the statement of parts.
Yeah, I was personally, I've gone to almost a month, so these are AJ's notes, you can't be here today. The ball field behind us is the introductory season, we use tarps and stuff, and technically, but it's all ready to go. He's planted, in the last month, I count 13 trees. I can go through the list of where and what, if you want me to. Including the ones with the kids down at the South Spruce Park, and anyway, Alpine Park's got one, RV Park got 3, one by the Sunset Stairs, one over here by the Westlands, one at the Academy, trail behind the conference center. He cleaned out the ramp at Colorado Wayside. He's got a different kind of spray, organic, I'm not sure what it is, alcohol count that is used on some of the plants and trees from on top, but an experiment.
Can we get some?
I asked him what it was. We used to use this stuff called Plantscape, which is by a big, but I think you got something else. I think one of the landscapers in town recommended it.
Yeah, pretty much deer off.
Yeah.
No, that.
And the success, you find different things, you know, the success rates, so. We're in charge of dropping off boxes of dog food bags at the Lester and Western at the depot. in case you're interested, with the document, like, the stories, and we've got lots of janitors. Edging and mowing citywide, about mowing underway. Let's see, we have permission from, DRB and planning to relocate the orange bench, which is a public art piece, is in front of the big town restroom. And now it's kind of hidden because of the fence there, so we're gonna move it over here to that one thing, in front of one of main pump station apparently. We switch it, so there'll still be a bench at Midtown Restroom, we just have the art piece and more exposed. And that's about it. Trevor, you got anything?
Any questions for her? Thank you very much.
Why do you have the flower baskets?
They're coming,
Okay.
they're here yet, we order them through Cannon Beach Landscape and we piggyback on Rita's order, and so I think the last I heard from AJ was a week or two. Usually they were around, right after Mother's Day berries, and I think it depends on how her grow is doing, but they're on the way. And we have the water truck all hooked up, and Paul put in a new pump and switches, so that's ready to go. Actually, he's been watering, new trees and shrubs with the water pump already, so that's a key element of the baskets is to be able to maintain them, so that truck's very good. Nice to have Paul back.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So the next item on the agenda is discussion of the Coal Creek Forest Reserve Stewardship Plan. My understanding is this was prompted by some comments that were made to us during the public comment period a couple of meetings ago, and they were repeated to Karen, and so it's on our agenda. I know, Richard, you were the person who spoke to us anyway. I wonder if you couldn't just lead us off with what you were interested in discussing.
Can you hear me?
We can now.
Okay, so my comments to Karen were, I was surprised that the feedback that I got is that we can't do anything in the Coal Creek Forest Reserve. And there was some comments about the bridges were debris catchers and that electric bikes should be banned in the Coal Creek Forest Reserve. I was on the original committee, I think with the mayor was one of the people on that. And there was 10, I think there were 10 of us on the original committee who formed that, the master plan, along with Reinmar. And I think when Reinmar retired, that enthusiasm up in the reserve kind of died off, and nobody really has taken the ball and run with it. And with the city, the reason for my comments now are that the city is sitting on a pile of money, way more money than they can spend. And the Coal Creek Forest Reserve has basically been ignored. There's not been very many dollars spent. There's been no trail development other than the little part of a loop trail which gets wood chips, and those are pretty much failed over time. The master plan the updated master plan actually calls for gravel in there. And I'd like to see more trails built into the Coal Creek Forest Reserve. They're called for in the master plan. If you look back in the original master plan of 2013, bridges, trails, bicycles, all those things are allowed with moderation. And there's restrictions on them, but they're all encouraged. And I think that it's time now for the city to start spending some of the excess money that we have. We're sitting on about $17 million of contingencies, unallocated ending fund balances, and reserve balances that are capital expenditures that have no home for them. And so I'm going to propose to the budget committee today that we put, I'm targeting like $100,000, but we ought to target putting something into the Ecola Creek Forest Reserve every year. And then you as a Parks Committee, I think, have the ability to suggest projects to Karen and Trevor. And that's hopefully what will happen, that we can improve some of those things. It talks directly in the master plan about a simple footbridge, Forest Service type bridges. It actually, defines those. And that's what I'm looking at it with the berm down below the water treatment plant between there and the berm. It obviously would have to be at an elevation that it doesn't catch debris. And there's other, that would complete the loop trail that we have now. So you could go in either side and loop out at the other side. Now you've got to ford through the river if you want to make it a loop trail. And so those are the things I'm not thinking of really complicated or things that are, anything that really has a major impact on tourism or, activity. The other thing that's in the master plan, the updated master plans, sounds like there's some road rocking that needs to be done. And, they're suggesting for fire access that some of the roads be improved slightly, not large amounts, but so we need to put money every year into the Ecola Creek Forest Reserve Fund. And I'd like your feedback if that's something you support or oppose, or, what you guys think about it.
Well, thank you, Richard. This is Les Sinclair. I'm currently the chair.
Hold on, do you want me to leave his mic open or do you want?
Oh, yeah, please leave his mic open. One of the things I'm a little confused about, when the stewardship plan was updated in 2018, and it actually didn't get final until 2020. And that's the copy that I think you provided at one point. There was an additional appendix that was attached to that came out of the Parks Committee at that time, which basically took the tack that we wanted to absolutely limit the amount of human interaction within the bulk of the ECFR. Things like the bridge over the Ecola Creek, creation of new trails. That was kind of the message that came out at that time. And then in 2023, we simply said, look, that updated stewardship plan only, is only 3 years old because it didn't get approved until 2020. And we hadn't had the ability to do much work in ECFR because of COVID and fire restrictions during, what would be the best work times. We have done some things. We've done our BlackBerry pilots. We continue to work on improved signage. We're working very closely with the North Coast Watershed Association for beaver enhancement. We've done a couple of deep dives into the reserve to see how the woody piles that were created, 10 years ago now, we're doing. I think what we've been doing is consistent with the stewardship plan update that was dated 2020 that came out of this. But we really I haven't given any consideration to the kind of projects that you're talking about.
Can I touch on something real quick about
Yes.
that? So from the 2013 stewardship plan, there were several items identified in there for action items, and we did accomplish a lot of those action items. One being a footbridge over the west fork of the Ecola Creek, including fire road access upgrades. We all remember that, the 2 fire roads.
Right, and I believe that work's been done.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's not like we ignored the stewardship plan. We got to a point from the 2013 stewardship plan, and we got to a happy place where we all felt comfortable with what we had done. As far as expanding trails and stuff like that, that's a decision we'd have to talk about, but right now the ECFR is shut down, so we're not going to build any trails.
No, we understood. Betty, do you have your hand up?
Well, Lest, you and I were both on the committee when we made these decisions. And with the new fire threats from 2019, we were very cautious about wanting to have more people uh, going into places in the ECFR, that precious resource, especially with things like e-bikes. We're trying to protect that space as a natural area. And that's different than when it was first proposed. So Richard, I think you should look back at 2020 meetings that we had. We had extensive meetings about fire roads, where we could put them, which roads we were going to get rid of. We're on the more conservative side because we want to protect that space. That's our water supply. And there's a lot of species in there we'd like to bring back. So I would think if you want to put money into it, put it into the watershed group that's trying to bring back the salmon and the beaver, so we can be advertising that that's one of the things our city has done. Put money into our weekend, our every month workforce that goes and deals with invasive species, because we could use money to get interns to come in there, or even put money into the education portion that was supposed to be, that was our fourth goal, was an education portion that would educate people about the ECFR. So I think that's where we should be putting our money. And we have been working diligently to try to make those things happen. So if you want to talk to anybody about what's been happening, please call me or call Les, because we've been working with groups coming in there volunteering to deal with issues.
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I appreciate all those efforts and I agree with all what you're saying. I think my concern is if I look at the budgets, there's been no money put into the Coil Creek Forest Reserve. I mean, very little. I think there's $9,000 in the account, and there's nothing proposed to go into the account this year. So I'd like to start contributing money into that fund. Obviously, you are the people who make decisions on how that money gets spent and what it goes for, whether it's a logging road, a bridge, or cleaning blackberries. You're the ones who make those decisions. So I'm just trying to get some money in there right now. I did not see an addendum. I looked through all the agreements that Karen sent me from 2018 and 2020 and 2023. I did not see an addendum where there were trails, new trails were banned, or that new bridges were banned, or that there was any other restrictions put on the reserve. So maybe I just missed that. But I didn't see anything in there. And the 2013 master plan definitely calls for all those things. It doesn't have to be, major impact, but that is a public spot and it's owned by the city. And we spent a lot of money buying that spot, and it's used heavily certain times of the year, just the roads themselves. I mean, you could go up there almost always and somebody's walking their dog or riding their bike. The other comment I have to make about electric bikes is that I ride an electric bike. I'm an old guy, and electric bikes help me get around a lot. And I don't know of any forest fires that have been started by electric bike. The State Parks Division just this last week made an amendment to their parks plan that electric bikes are allowed on all bike paths. And so I think the danger of an electric bike is pretty minimal. The battery that's in an electric bike is no different than what's in your phone.
If I could just jump in here for a second, I'm trying to raise my hand. I haven't been able to on the computer here, so I apologize. This is Karen. Betty, you hit the nail on the head. I want to paraphrase a little bit here. I think what Betty was trying to say, Richard, was that for a period of time, we were sensitive to inviting too many folks into the reserve because we had that fire start up there and it was a big eye opener. Our former emergency manager was very passionate about us reestablishing the prior fire roads so that the fire department could have a defensive position in controlling and extinguishing a fire of which they found very difficult to access the area when that fire started several years ago. And so it took almost 2 years for the committee to go through and completely do a full review of the stewardship plan, which had not really been done. There had been some updates here and there, but this was the first time the committee had really done a complete overhaul and look of the stewardship plan. And despite no major significant changes being made, they went through the entire thing, made the appropriate changes for that update period, and that took almost 2 years. And in addition to that effort was the fire roads going on, where it had to go to council multiple times and in front of different committees to get the buy-in for that. That took some time to do. We ultimately agreed. Council gave us the direction to proceed, and we established an IGA with former Greenwood, which is now Nuveen, to maintain those roads for us. And so that's in place. It shows in the budget that there is money dedicated to that and the care of those roads. And then lastly, there is a project that has been going on for several years now relative to the beaver restoration. And as Betty mentioned, the city as well as Nuveen has worked closely with the North Coast Watershed Council to not only put money towards that, but to help promote that project to move forward. So it's not like nothing's been done, but there's a pecking order of what we can take on as a committee and as a staff, quite frankly, to get some of these things done. So we have to kind of choose what we're doing, but there in no way has the ECFR been neglected. There's money in there to deal with Scotch broom and invasive species each year. But I really appreciate what Betty said. We need to get more volunteers to help with that, because the money we have in there, we have to hand pull everything. We can't treat it any other way. And the money that we had in the budget is just simply not sufficient for the amount of acreage we have up there. And just chomping away at it little by little has been what we've done. But that may be an area where we need to be more aggressive. It's great to add new trails or footbridges or whatever the committee decides to recommend. They don't have the authority to make decisions to execute because they don't have a budget, but they can recommend. I take that forward on their behalf, and I fight to get the money for them. So none of that has changed. The passion for that area has not waned away since Ryan Marr left. If anything, I think there's been a greater focus of what the contents of the stewardship plan says and what we want to see going forward based on what we're currently experiencing with houseless people up in our reserve, people defecating in the areas where it's going into our storm ditches and ultimately run down into the outfalls onto the beach. So these are things we've become extremely sensitive to that we never had to face before. And so the passion for that area, Richard, has not waned away in any form or fashion. And it's up to the committee to prioritize what they would like to bring forth. And I have no qualms about going and asking for money. I do it every year.
Okay, well, I don't see any money going into the Aquila Creek Forest Reserve Fund this year. So, I mean, that's what I'm going by. There's a balance resources of $6,393.
For new projects, you're correct, Richard. There was not a new project brought forward this year.
So, but anyway, so I guess my proposal today, Karen, was I'm gonna ask if we can put $100,000 in there, and I think we should do it every year, at least $100,000. With the amount of money that we have now, the city has huge amounts of money that they don't know what to do with, and I just think it's a thing that the Parks Committee ought to have some resources to be able to make decisions and do things they want to do up there, whether it's a bridge or a trail or weeding.
I don't disagree with you, but I think before we ask for $100,000 to be dedicated to the budget, we should have a plan on what we're going to do with that money, because it doesn't make sense to put it there if we don't have a plan on what we would like to do. I think we bring the plan forward to the city and ask them to fund that plan. But that's your call. If you want to talk about that today during the budget committee, I invite you to do so. But if the budget committee were to ask me what the plan is, I'm going to tell them the stewardship team has not brought something forward for me to bring to them. And we do have plans for the money that the city has in the budget. I have a lot of infrastructure plans, a lot of improvements within public works that I'd love to see, and you'll hear that today.
Betty, I think you had your hand up.
Yes, I really do feel, well, we were working on interpretive signage and also a new kiosk. Then we decided to wait on that and wait till we had NACUS set up so that we could, the NACUS plan, which was an educational center that would kind of talk about the ECFR. We were waiting to find out what would happen with that before we put more signage over at the trail. I guess it's, I don't know what the name of is it Elk Road or something? That was where we're going to put a interpretive signage and a new kiosk. So that was put on hold until NACUS got decided. And you know where we are with NACUS. So things that we wanted to do, we haven't been able to do, but we have plans to also, the beaver and the salmon is a big project. And if we want to put money in that will help that group, because they're getting turned down over and over when they try to get grant money for that. So they do have a grant in right now to do education, including our little Cannon Beach Academy. They want to create an educational program for students. They need money for that. So that's on our community grant. And that would get more education there, which is what we need so that people don't take advantage of it. They respect it. So education is what we were really focusing on. So people would cherish it just as much as we do.
If I could just add.
Yeah.
Good discussion. I'm newer to some of this detail, but from what I'm hearing, I'd say that I personally support more activities relating to restoration and education rather than kind of changing the habitat further, such as building grades for new trails or such. And there actually is some good data, if we wanted to get into it, showing that e-bikes can be ignition sources for forest fires. It has happened. That's why a lot of the private land in the county actually does not allow e-bikes on the property because of that evidence. So, but generally, I'd like to see that. I think it's a good point that Betty brings, is that we may have a near-term opportunity to fund some things as soon as there's a confirmed vision and plan as Karen recommends or requires. So, but I'm for restoration and education in the Nicola Forest Reserve.
So let me build on that then. So we do have a plan fleshed out with regard to this educational opportunity that's been submitted for a community grant. Is there an opportunity that might be funded in some other way than community grants? And that is kind of a question, because I don't know what the real ropes are within the city and how the wheels turn and make things happen. But that could be, as I recall, that was in the $30,000 range. Is that something that could be considered? For my purposes, we'd love to see that happen. And we'd also like maybe to reallocate that to other places within some of the other applications if it were possible.
I think that's a slippery slope when it's considered ECFR. I kind of get the loophole with the grade school kids, I get that, but I think that'd be a tough sell.
That's
just me thinking right now.
No, and that's kind of what I wanted, so we really don't have something that we can submit today, but we've got some ideas that we could potentially put together.
When it comes time to update the plan, again, we're coming up on that time frame. We did, Barry sends back in here and we start the discussion and we get an actual game plan. Instead of shooting from the hip, and we like to go, now let's get a game plan.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Okay. All right, any other thoughts, comments? among this group, so. Richard, what are you thinking now? We've kind of told you what we've been doing and I guess we've come to the conclusion or the consensus that we're not ready to put a recommendation together that would actually tie to any kind of dollar amount for the
Well,
budget.
your budget, I guess my comment would be your budget shows an unallocated project of $6,393, which gets you nowhere with nothing. If you had $100,000 in the budget, that gives you a whole year to decide what you're going to spend that on. And most of the budgets that the city have don't spend all the money they have in them. That's why we have all these surpluses. We put money in a fund, and then that gives whoever is managing that fund an opportunity to do something with. We are sitting on literally, you guys are looking a gift horse in the mouth, I think, because we are sitting on so much money right now. The city can't spend it all. They have no place to put it. It's sitting in contingencies, it's sitting in reserves that'll never get spent. And I think the Parks Department, the Parks Group has the opportunity to have some money that they can spend. It probably should be more than 100,000, but at least it's a start where we start putting some money in this fund that was intended to, improve the Cola Creek Forest Reserve. It's still you guys have to make the decision. I can't make the decision. I can just make a suggestion that we put some money in there. And I would think that you would want to have that available to you for projects.
Greg, let me ask you a separate question. UCFR is currently closed for, I guess, the water resiliency project phase 2. I'm assuming that there will be some impact to the UCFR from the dirt work and things that are going on, and I think it would have to be. Is that going to be all remediated within the budget for that?
Correct.
Or is that something we couldn't do?
Everything's already put back the way it was. All the work, 99% of the work's being done in the actual roadway as today.
What's is that looking at the Parks Master Plan and putting some funding there for the greater good and maybe not focusing so much just on the ECFR, until we really get an idea about the restoration projects that we want to do, but there's certainly other parks projects within town, the trails and things like that. Maybe acquiring land for another park. I'm not really sure, but I think I brought that up for the committee to look at the Parks Master Plan. And that could be some areas that, as Richard is so generously offering some funding. And I appreciate that, and maybe that will motivate us to find a project for the greater good of.
Yeah, I think we've got the Parks Master Plan started in our June meeting.
Yeah.
That was what we had discussed, and so
Yeah.
how would that fit in? Theoretically, what I would think we would do is we would put together our recommendations and not get funded this budget cycle, but get funded the next budget cycle. That's the way I think I prefer we went, unless there's an overwhelming consensus that we would be better off to figure out to request money right now.
That is the normal process, Les. You're exactly right. Not in the history of me being here in almost 10 years that we've ever put money into a budget without having a plan on how we were going to spend it, or a direction in which we were going to go forward to develop a plan to spend that. And I'll remind you guys, we have a great trail project that's in the TSP that's sitting and waiting, that goes through the Spruce Forest Reserve. While our ECFR is restricted, that is a project that you guys could consider. I've had a lot of community feedback asking us why we haven't moved forward on that. There's nothing that prevents the committee from asking me to go forward to council and asking them to extrapolate that from the TSP and allow us to move forward on that. That's the footbridge that walks through the Spruce Reserve, getting people off of the street when they're walking up Spruce from First to Gower. there's nothing that restricts us from moving forward on that. Rockaway did a wooded walkway like that with interpretive signs, and it is hugely popular for people to learn and understand what that area represents. That's a project you guys can move forward on.
Well, I personally hate doing too much in the Spruce Reserve. I think it's beautiful as it is, and to go in there and start putting in a wooden trail like the Rockaway, which is beautiful, but I'm not sure that that fits that area. I think Councillor Hayes mentioned, the bridge over by First Street, the little walkway, bridge over that goes towards Les Shirley.
The old horse
Yeah,
trail.
that there was some concern because that's deteriorating so that it's unwalkable, and that might be the first thing to look at.
Change of policy, but it's possible. In other words, that was a horse trail grandfathered in by the company that ran horses. When the horses stopped maintaining it, let it go back.
Right.
There's 4 bridges, not one. And
Yeah.
I have no idea what state they're in, but
Yeah.
Well, the TSP called for a trail, and at the time, I think it said to go under First Street Bridge, which I
that
thought
was
was
the trail.
ridiculous.
From Mahola Creek Park under to the
Yeah.
kids. Yeah, that was one of our fantasies.
Yeah. So, but anyway, that area might be something, I mean, just to give us a warm up to some other projects, you know.
It sounds like you guys should take the Parks Master plan. Next month, you're gonna start looking at it. In this whole discussion, and actually, the ECFR is mentioned in the Parks
Right.
Master. And you can see how they dovetail with each other. And just look at that plan and.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think you're ahead of yourself talking about this trail, that trail, this trail, like today, right now.
Right, no, I think that we're working towards looking at the master plan in general, but just because projects are getting
Because they must be, I
discussed, that there are some things that we
think
can.
that master plan
Gravel.
has 6 or 8 trails. They have north side trails, how to get around, yes.
Right.
trails, and all that.
We gotta start somewhere,
Right.
Yeah.
That's what that's what I'm looking forward
yeah,
to.
and I think that's what we're working towards.
Right.
But, all right, so, we need to move ahead. If, I don't want to cut anybody off, but we need to continue on. Richard, what I'm hearing is that we really don't feel like we want to request money for, ECFR at this time. But I will commit to you that we, do have, and you've heard, a lot of interest in, reopening the Parks Master Plan, and we will be coming up with some projects that we can submit. I will try to make sure that we will also include conversation around ECFR specifically. Now that we're through our 12 days of Earth Day and community grants pieces, I think the committee will finally have some time to think about something else. Will that suffice, Richard?
All right, I appreciate the feedback.
Okay.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you for coming and talking to us. Are there any other items of discussion relative to that before we move ahead? Okay, next is, Robert. I think we had one.
And I'd like to speak about, there was one permit for 2 trees, and I'm happy to say we only had to remove 1 of the trees. Cedar was in the way significantly for the excavating machine and became a safety hazard. But this, the Sitka spruce, it was a great day because I invited Jeff Gearhart out the whole day. And we spent the whole day out there with the excavating crew as they dug that pit next to the Sitka spruce. And we were able to save it. We were able to extract the root system, and it did not impact the tree, so
Nice
it
job.
was a great day, and I'm proud to announce that we saved that tree. Jeff was excited, and it was a team effort. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
When this water line project's all done, I'm gonna invite Jeff Gearhart back, and we're gonna get a game plan for planting in the area. And I'd like you to utilize that site next year for the grade school kids. Great day, but we're gonna get started planning right after we get done with the project, but I want to leave maybe a few pods in there. 2 years in there.
That'd be great.
Okay?
All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any questions? Sounds like a great outcome.
Yeah, it was a good day. Stressful, but we did it.
Next item is the tree focus group. I've only got one comment. The next meeting of the focus group is gonna be on the 27th. But we have elected to, remove the tree code, from the, June agenda for the council. That's when we were planning to take it forward. We had some pretty good discussion at our last meeting, and frankly, I think we believe that the tree code needs to move together with the housing efforts that are going on, that they're just too interrelated. So at this time, I don't know when we're on the agenda to talk to the council again, but I'll be happy to let everybody know as soon as I know, but it will not happen in June. Any questions? No? Okay, so Betty, reserve cleanup.
Okay, so this month we're gonna go back to, so you're saying it's Ecola Creek Park, is that what it's called? Across from Nakus?
Yes,
Ecola Creek Park, okay. We're gonna go back there and we're going to we're gonna get closer to finishing the job of removing all the invasives. We are monitoring the site to see where the water comes and where the elk walk before we plant our pollinator plants. We want to do it right. And if we want to put money in the budget for more pollinator plants, I would love that. That's that would be fun to have that all in every park that we clean. We have pollinator plants. So whoever comes on Saturday, I don't know where I put the tools, so I'm trying to find the tools. Les, did you have them at your house?
I did not have them, Betty. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Track them down.
I think I put them on my porch, but that was 2 weeks ago. And Mark, I didn't give them to you, did I?
No, but I'll drive by your place and see if they're on the porch after the meeting.
Sorry, everybody. Leaving town. But anyway, so if you do go to the thing on Saturday, bring some tools. And tarps are always nice too.
Okay. Community grants. So we're right in the middle of our grant process. Sherry has put together the first pass spreadsheet. Has everybody seen that?
No.
Okay.
I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't either.
You'll want to send that out.
But I think I need to put it on a form that shows their ask and just what the amounts came to, not everybody's individual when I send it out.
Well, we
In the
actually,
past,
I would rather that it showed everybody's individuals just amongst the group, because that's really the object of our discussion is that we're gonna have is, are we pretty consistent? Is somebody kind of a long ways out from the bulk? Those are the questions we usually end up getting. So I don't think you should hide the detail from the committee.
I don't know, I'll look at last year's, I think last year's, you guys don't see your individual, but I mean, that's up to you. I just want to protect, somebody's feelings. I don't know how that is.
Yeah, well,
Well, I think,
I can tell you, I've seen it and I don't see any problem.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think we're gonna have any. But the questions the questions the committee has had in the past have had to do with, well, why did one person do a certain thing? And we have to be able, and those questions come up because in the past, we've never hidden who allocated what.
Didn't see any of the allocation funding.
They shouldn't, and that's why I don't know, I might have to get with Jen on what the requirements are, because it might be something that, amongst you guys, I could understand, but individuals might not like that, so I gotta be careful.
Well, it just could create an awkward situation
Yes.
knowing that we funded that, we
Yes,
didn't quite do that.
correct. So anyway, I shared the new level so that you knew it was. some-
Yeah, well, and I've had that detail every year that I've been on the committee, so I never imagined it wasn't part of the norm. If there's a concern, then that's fine, but at the same time, I mean, this is a public process and we're following the right rules, and I don't have any problem with dealing with questions. I mean, I really don't. My point really was simply to recognize that we do have everybody's in a spreadsheet. Jerry, you'll figure out how to distribute that, you
Right,
know, correctly, and that's fine. We have our next meeting. Well, let me back up. I've got some notes. So I'm actually going to speak briefly to the budget committee this afternoon about two of the grant requests that we felt like were not within the purview of the program. And at least suggest that they be kept in mind, because we had a consensus that they were valid requests. I mean, they were real needs, put it that way. And so after that, if we got any additional advice that I need to pass on, I'll work through Sherry to get that to everybody. Otherwise, we will have a meeting on the 21st to finalize our recommendations and prepare to submit them to council.
I guess my one question of that would be is, and I think I asked this before, but we just make sure that the budget committee is cognizant is that if you're seeing a trend, well, we've been asked to balance to 140,000, but I think I know on my worksheet, I showed that originally I started and hearing the presentations and the justification for it. You know, I came in with a recommendation about 15,000 above, so about 155. But would be is that if their funds are available and if there's an agreement, or if the budget committee or other powers to be say we agree with this committee's recommendation, you know, is it possible to increase that number? Just making them aware of that. If again, that's an appropriate place to needs inside the city, that would benefit 20 different groups if we could get them closer to what we thought they truly were justified, if you will.
We have never gone to the budget committee with our community grant program. In my experience, the fact that it got increased last year kind of caught all of us off guard, and you know, it really did. I think what I had intended to tell the budget committee is that what we saw were a number of organizations that are continuing to see increased headcount or throughput on, you know, people in need. And that we talked to several that are already experiencing problems with federal funding, and several more that anticipated problems. But no, I had not intended to suggest a higher number than what was submitted in the budget. Frankly, I think the budget committee on their own is going to do that without my thought.
Okay, that's fine. So I understand your position, not asking for more, but I just wanted to make sure they were aware that the requests were greater than that if we want to get to that point. And in none of them did I actually get to what they asked for, but it seems like it came up a little bit. I'm wondering also I'm not sure if in this committee at another time or the budget committee is, you know, what I was hearing is there was three main categories of the grants, you know, the big one was humanitarian efforts, you know, with food, shelter, social services. The others were arts, and then the third would be environment. Would be how between those three different pools is the 140 allocated, and is there any desire to have that balanced in some way or not? So I'm just not sure of that, but it seems like we may. I didn't do that math yet. But it'd be interesting to see, are we weighing one of those? If we feel that they're all equally valid requests, are we weighing one of them in our allocation higher than the other? unintentionally.
Yeah, I had some other comments or questions when I first started and there isn't any guidance, as far as I can tell. I think that the conditions that we're in tend to sway us. I noticed going into, COVID years, we tended to focus on, the food and things that helped people who clearly knew were in need. But I don't think there's any specific guidance on how we need to allocate. We don't balance to a, line item budget or anything. I think my recommendation is that you listen to the interviews, you read their applications, and the ones that move you are the ones that you should, you gotta consider support.
Yeah.
And understanding that there are 5 of us that are gonna make everything average out.
I agree, man. Well, and I'm not debating you, but I'm thinking everything you heard was important. From each of the different things we said were important. A lot of them are important and urgent. And those seem to be where emotions, immediate needs go. Some of them you heard were really important, but they weren't urgent. Let's say like the education program for Cold Creek. You're investing into a program, it's gonna go to the Cannon Beach Academy. Those things have a long-term importance, even though they're not immediately urgent. And if you things that are important but aren't urgent, you're just crisis. So I just encourage us to look at opportunities to make investments in the future. A lot of it would be, in my opinion, some of the environmental education. I probably get to where I should be commenting next week, so I'll leave it there for today.
Okay.
Betty has a comment.
Yeah, hey, Ben.
I thank you, Mark, for bringing this up because I think these discussions, we've never really had them, and these are good discussions to have. One of the things that, Tim, Ramey, and now Richard keep saying how much money the city has. And we've had an arbitrary, it seems to me now arbitrary, 90,000, now it's 140,000. Who decides if that's enough? And with all this money, why aren't we helping the community more if we can? So I would recommend that we would ask for more, because I didn't read any grant that didn't seem worthy. Why are we putting stumbling blocks? These are people that are, in our community that are working really hard to help everyone in our community. So what's the problem with adding more money? Let's just try for it. I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask. That's my point of view.
Ask is always gonna be more than the budget, though. I mean, so you get more in the budget and then you get more applications and you're always gonna be short in your budget for what, especially when we're getting applications now that are asking for 30,000, 56,000, 300,000, when typically, we've had maybe 10,000 was the most asked. And so I think some criteria would be helpful because, you do find that you're allotting these, funds through emotion, what application speaks to you, your philosophy on, whether you target education and environment, and then, hope that the people that are in need for whatever personal hardships decreases. So, maybe we should explore some criteria, in how we allot funds, but I think this is great discussion because as Betty said, it hasn't really ever come up. You just sort of look at the packet, look at the application, and then try to divide the money evenly.
So go ahead.
Tom's got his hand up.
Who's on? Oh, hey, Tom.
Hey, look, one thing that I believe is that, they give us a budget and we should try to live with that budget. The idea is that they're looking for us to rank these in order of importance. We've got, 5 more information change than the council has. You know, we got exposure to more people and they're looking for feedback from us. You know, it may not be 140,000 that they end up doling out, but it'll give them a ranking to, you know, to distribute those funds by. You know, it's more information for them. So we should really, I think, try to stay within the guidelines of the budget and give them, you know, needed feedback. In other words, if we approve all the requests, we haven't done anything for them. So our feedback is important to the council, I believe.
Well, I do think our feedback is important. I agree with that. I'm not quite sure how we would rank. I mean, we were talking about a much longer process to come to a ranking consensus on importance, but all those are good possibilities, and I don't think I have any problem if we want to take this up maybe in a separate meeting and talk about how we might want to adjust our process. I don't have any problem with that. But I think for purposes of this meeting, what I think I want to ask is does this committee want me to speak as a representative of the committee to the budget committee this afternoon? And do you want me to indicate that if more than the 140,000 were allocated, that we would be happy to?
But we can spend it.
I mean, like I said, I was not intending to reference the budget. And it's not our place. I mean, it's the budget committee's purview to make those kind of calls, and it's the city council's final decision. But I'm just trying to get the message right. And if more of you are kind of what Mark is saying, you know, I would have liked to have had 15,000 more dollars. You know, if I had had it, you know, I can express that.
I don't know, I feel like they were generous to give us the extra money that they did, and now we're gonna go in and ask for more, doesn't.
It would be next year.
Yeah, it just seems that that's not feeling as grateful as I was to get the extra funds in the first place. You know, and if they were to bring it up, certainly you could say, yeah, we could have spent all the money that you allocated to parks community grants. But I don't know that I'm comfortable asking them for more money, you know.
It's just, and I don't think I really either. It becomes just a rubber stamp. If you submit an application and you get funded.
Yeah, I agree.
But we never cut the checks until after the next year's budget starts, so, you know, it would affect this one. All right, anyway, so I'll wrap that up. So we're almost out of time.
Betty's hand is up.
Oh.
It's all right.
Sorry.
I just felt like this year felt extremely hard to cut people. The girl from CASA, my gosh, you know, the people that are dealing with, it just felt this year extremely hard to take away from those groups. And that was the only thing you can do, is take away from the groups. And so anyway, I'm going to stick with the idea that we would ask for more. And I don't think it's setting a precedent. I just think this is a year where the whole world is going crazy, and these people are going to be the brunt of what's happening in the greater world. So I'm going to still recommend we ask for more.
Okay, thank you, Dave. All right, I don't think we need to talk about 12 Days of Earth Day. It's on the agenda, but we do need to do a look back on that. So if any of you have any immediate thoughts on things that we can improve, why don't you email them to Sherry and she'll collect them, and then we'll put it on the agenda for next month, and we'll talk a little bit about how to do that. The last thing I need to do before we run out of time is there is a new code of conduct. It's in the packet. It applies to all committee members. I didn't write it, but I'm curious if anybody has any questions concerning that?
I think that there may have been a.
Yeah, we have the,
Missing. When you get to council's expectation regarding the treatment of staff, the last sentence says appointed officials should engage in or encourage personal attacks of staff members inside or outside of public meetings. I think the word not got left out.
I was gonna mention that.
I thought somebody's gotta catch this before. Anyway, that might be an amendment that needs to be,
Yeah.
taken care of right away.
And I have no question, just when I saw it, I was glad to see when I got to the bottom of the page, it did not say that I couldn't wear shorts. Who's gonna have to read?
No
something?
dress code.
Yeah.
Bruce, you have any specific comments to us regarding that?
Betty's got it.
What point of that people?
Betty,
Oh, Betty.
One of the things it did say is when we're on Zoom, we should turn our video on, Tom.
Yeah, I kind of got in late and failed to do that.
Okay.
In fact, I think what I did is an improvement. So
And then, folks are good about dealing with staff, but, one of the things that is important to me is just if you have a concern about a staff member, addressing it to the city manager privately outside of a public meeting. During the meeting, it's never appropriate to, address down a staff member. And also, the staff members don't work directly for the board, for this group. And so I run into situations where somebody gets told, we don't want a recommendation. And then I've been telling them, we make a recommendation, to, for whatever issue it is, if it's budget or whatever. So to maintain the consistency, if there are any issues, just let me know and we'll get them taken care of. But, I don't want to have too many bosses out there. Thank you for catching that.
Well,
I read that and I'm like, I'm cringing.
well, that's what I said. That's not right.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts, comments, hands up? No. All right, good of the order. Any things to be brought up?
I was on the park committee when the community grant program began. And, first year, our budget was 14,000.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. I mean, it's a miracle to me that the city's able to do this. We're kind of getting, I think, a little used to being rich, but it's amazing because I don't know many other communities that do this.
3 new playgrounds are gonna cost more than $500,000.
Can I try to address that quickly? Thing about the money. That's been done intentionally. And the city is in a position, we're talking about building a resilient water system. And we're right at the end. And all of a sudden federal funding and things like that are getting cut off. And we're talking about building, affordable housing. And we talked about the RV park. And the RV park, it's either gonna be an RV park or it could be affordable housing. But we're not having those conversations yet, but we're talking about spending the money that we would be able to go ahead and do those things with. Because if we decide to continue it as an RV park, then we need to master plan it, and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. Just to be able to go ahead and say, let's go ahead and put it into that, then you spend the money on whatever it is you need to do. And then if you're gonna do, affordable housing on that site, you need to master plan it. You need to do all of the studies that you need to have all those kinds of things. So we have needs that exceed the amount of money that we have that is building up. And I'm glad, and I think it's cool that we're a city that if we want to build a trail, we don't have to go, to referral or, we have the funds to be able to go ahead and do those things. We have been setting money aside. So, I don't apologize for the funds that have been built up. And we need, we're at a lot of decision points. And having those funds are gonna be able to get us through. So I'm in no hurry to, spend.
Well said.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. All right, meeting adjourned.